everybody. Welcome to PhD Positivity Hug, delivered by myself, Beata Young, the founder of Woman on It, joined today by my guest, who is Mario Kaiko. She's the manager for Kindred Malta, and she's been with Kindred for how many years?
It kind of varies. Basically, I think for 2017, I joined Kindred via company acquisition, so that's why the date is a little difficult to define.
And you've been actually in many various roles that were in tech. So you've been project manager as well as CTO. So the question we would like to start, what led you to this specific career path, Mario?
It was, I wish I could say that I had a big plan to start working in technology. I really didn't. It was more of a coincidence. Back in 2007, I really needed a job. And I found a job ad that a company was looking for someone to maintain some tech projects, and I applied and I got the job. And then when I got into it, I was really excited, and then I kind of knew that I had found my thing. But I didn't really know anything about software development before that job. I was always a nerd, though. I got a computer with my first summer job money, and I built it from all the different parts and so on. So I kind of had it in me anyway.
Okay, so Mario, but the question is really, did you study technology? Did you go into the field consciously, or did you see the future in it?
When I started to work in technology, I was still studying actually, and I was studying finance. I did finish my degree because I thought that, there's never gonna be anything that I regret from doing a finance degree. It's quite useful for anything. But all the technical aspects of my job, I have learned by doing the job. But when I got into working in technology, I got really, really excited about that and really into it. So I really dived into that and started to read everything that I got into my hands and so on.
And from what we spoke before, because we met over a year ago, and I discussed with you the prospect of founding this community. So you were one of the first to know about it, and you really light up to this idea. And I have to say that I was so pleased to welcome your company, Kindred, one of the first iGaming companies to join us, which was very big news for me, because not many people knew how really this community is going to help them along the process. But I think we delivered some interesting workshops, we had some interesting topics, we had discussion also in your offices some time ago, organized by you and your colleague. And so I'm just wondering, why do you believe there is such a need of women gathering and discussing together, not only women, because I always say we are for you. So whether it doesn't matter whether you're female, what we are trying to achieve is balancing technology, because we need everybody involved. We need to shift from community of users of technology into communities of creators of technology. So why do you believe there is such a need for women in technology?
I think not only the women who already work in technology join these meetings and join to participate, to see these kind of streamings and everything. Also the women who are considering a career or might be interested to start learning coding or something. And I think that communities like this, they fix misconceptions. There's a lot of misconceptions on what a career in technology might mean, but in reality there's so much variety, and there's definitely something for everyone. to do. So I really like fixing those misconceptions and telling people and telling women what kind of things you can actually achieve and what kind of things you can be involved with. I think that's really important. But at the same time, it's all about like creating the connections and getting to know each other, because we do tend to, recruit the type of people who we have met before and so on. So that's really important as well.
Absolutely, I can agree with you more, but today we are going, the topic is leadership of the future. And one thing that I really liked discussing with you was the fact that Women on It is not just a community of women in tech. We are here to deliver more leaders, because my job is going to be so much easier if we've got a community of leaders who are willing to make a change, and by this big wave we can create a storm. So why do you believe there is a future for female leadership?
That's a really good question. I think that I talk a lot about like modern leadership, and I do write articles about modern leadership. I think that the requirements for leadership have changed a lot. And I believe and I think and I have seen that women have a lot of those qualities that are required in today's leadership. We used to talk a lot about soft skills, and we tend to think that people skills and leading people are soft skills. But I believe that these soft skills in today's world are hard skills. And it's the emotional intelligence and leading people, because the jobs have become really highly specialized. And there's a specialist software developer. They have years and years of training behind them and a lot of experience. And how you lead these kind of people is so different than how you would lead, I don't know, an organization of, well, people usually always refer to army, for example, but yeah, and I think that women have a lot of these qualities and skills, and they can be excellent leaders, very successful, excellent leaders. So
absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Sorry, Micah, to Maria, to interrupt you. You've got, I would say, double meaning name, and actually you said, don't worry, I'm a female, because everybody thinks you're a male, and actually that could probably be a helping factor in your career, because apparently female leaders are perceived either as being too weak or too aggressive. So and male leadership is, and it's proven by research, male leadership is more welcome. And actually, Melinda Gates, in her book, The Moment of Lift, How Empowering Women Changes the World, talks about there are two feelings that is necessary in leadership, that a leader should have. One is empathy, and one is love. And actually, that's really strikes me as a very interesting topic, because nobody talks about love. No politicians talk about love. You wouldn't hear about, oh, let's talk about love in today's board meeting. And so why do you think Melinda Gates says that this is critical for leading your team? Love is critical for leading your team.
Like I mentioned, like you're leading highly specialized people, so you're relying on them a lot. You're relying on them to deliver and to know that they know what they are doing. And so you need to offer something else, and that is the environment that they work in. So you're providing empathy, and you're providing encouragement, and you're providing positivity, and all these kind of things. And you need to be kind of genuinely interested in the people that you're working with. So I haven't heard anyone saying anything about love, but I think you kind of need to love what you're doing. You need to love leading people in order to be good at it. And I think people know this, that they know if you're like it or if you don't like, being, if you're not a people person and you don't like it at all and you're not very social, people know that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have to say that actually having teams with different backgrounds and knowing what their needs are, what their history is really helping in informing the team and in onboarding them. And although I have to also say, because part of my business is also back in Poland, and when I moved to Malta, it was quite tricky for me to still manage my team. So because I couldn't see them face to face, I couldn't see their expression. Sometimes it was just a phone call. We didn't really use that much of modern technology, I mean, in terms of Zoom or other platforms, but I had to make sure that they are at the same level. They know where the company is going. How is onboarding now for you? Did you, for example, have to hire someone while working still remotely, or did you have to maybe make somebody redundant?
I'm lucky. I didn't need to make anyone redundant. It's just a really big deal for me. But I did onboard someone. I did recruit her earlier, but I did onboard her during this time. And it's been quite interesting. When my team started to work remotely, I encouraged that we move all meetings to video meetings. And now that people have gotten used to it, everyone is using it because so much the communication is non-verbal and it's happening, you're reading facial expressions and so on. So when I onboarded someone, we have a daily catch up with her. And by the end of the day, and we chat, and she's telling me what she's been doing and what she needs from me and what kind of tools she might need, or just it's an informal one, so we talk about everything. But the technical onboarding that she's doing a lot with other people than me. But I might connect her to the right people and so on. It's been quite interesting, but I think she's done excellent job, so I'm very happy.
Good. I think it's also, again, it's like with personal face-to-face contact. You have to know the person and you have to know what tickles them, whether it's money, whether it's other means of motivation. You need to make sure that you motivate them the right way. And this is where actually emotional leadership comes in. I believe that when Kevin McCleary talks about why women are delivering the best return, he actually talks about the fact that all his investments made in women-led business gave better return because they were more emotionally connected. They gave the path that was much more clear because they could express themselves much better than male. So how was it for you? Did you find similar traits, and was it easier for you as a male versus other female versus other male colleagues?
I'm not sure. I don't really compare myself to others, but I do think that I have a bit of a different approach to leadership, and I do think that I kind of emotionally connect with people. I aim to show always genuine interest in them. So, when I talk to them and ask how they are, I really listen what they say and ask for more questions and get to know them on a personal level. Also because I want to build personal development plans and to know what the people are good at, what kind of skills I need to encourage more, what kind of skills we need to build on. And they are not always technical skills only. They can be something like confidence or communication or things like that. So you do need to get to know people in order to be able to do that. But like I mentioned before, I said there's a future in female leadership because women have a lot of these qualities like emotional intelligence and so on. I do find this extremely useful and successful skills.
Fantastic.
But that's one more thing you mentioned earlier about women being referred to as aggressive and this. It was quite interesting. GitHub also made a study, and they studied how much a code created by women gets accepted. And when people knew that it was created by women, there was a clear difference that they got less accepted. But if they didn't know the gender, the women code was accepted in more cases. So the quality was actually better. And then, the female were often referred to as, aggressive and, all these kind of terms, and the men were never referred to those terms. So.
Well, there is definitely this perception that small steps lead to big accomplishments, and I'm a firm believer in micro actions, which are the tiny bits of actions that if you take them every day, they're gonna make the process much easier. So,
yeah.
And actually, this brings me at this great story of Eleanor Roosevelt talked about. To handle yourself, you need to use your head, but to handle people, you need to use your heart. So that actually applies very much so. And I think, given the fact that you're a mother yourself, you're a recent mother, and you've got a 10-month-old son, I was wondering, how did perspective change for you? Because from my observation, I changed after giving birth to my daughter, and I was more kind of emotionally unstable, and you may call it however you want. Maybe it was hormones, but actually, I discovered that I cry after a sad movie or, Titanic or whatever the movie was. And how was it for you? Was it a difficult process to come back to work? And I know that you've got some exciting story to share about how your parental obligation are shared at home. So how was it for you, Mario?
I did, coming back to work, it wasn't that difficult for me. Like I mentioned, I don't know, it's an exciting story, but when we did plan to have a baby with my husband, we already then agreed that he would stay home to take care of him as a stay-at-home father. And I did take 5.5 months off from work and then returned back to work, and my husband is, still taking care of our son. It wasn't that difficult for me to get back to work because I just knew that my son is so well taken care of. If it would have been some stranger to leave my son to, I would have been really upset. But I changed definitely when I had a baby. I felt like that was the moment I grew up. That was the last moment when I was definitely an adult and having this responsibility. But it was a very positive experience overall, and it's been wonderful. Now he's 10.5 months old, and I've been back to work for quite a while. But the company that I work for is also very flexible, and to combine parenthood and work and so on. So I feel like in my company it is as easy as it can get. But to me it comes so naturally to being able to work as well. It's my own thing, and it's very important to me.
Excellent. We've got some questions coming from our audience, but bear with us a second. We're gonna make sure that all the questions or majority of them are answered. And Mario also have got some exciting links to share. We'll share it after we talk to you, so you don't run away to check out what we've got to share. But I would like to actually ask you, how was working remotely for your company? Because I think you're one of the first companies that implemented remote working a long time before it went cool. It was cool. So, and actually, I remember you saying, you know, I can't meet you with you on Friday because I'm staying at home. And so, how was it for you? Was it a big shift, or was it just business as usual?
It is still a big shift though, because we have always been work from home, like you mentioned, but it's been more of an exception than a rule. I tend to work from home maybe 1 day a week, and I can just kind of make up my own schedule to decide when I want to work from home. But now that there's not even the option to go to the office, it's been an adjustment. And I feel like it's been an adjustment for everyone. Many people mentioned that they're really kind of missing each other physically and miss going to the office and so on. But we have had all the tools for remote work existing. So when this thing happened, we just started working from home. There wasn't a big shift. The only change that I made is that I brought my screen, my office screen, to home so that I have a better poster when I work, and I'm not going to kill my back and neck. So that was the only thing.
So we've got a couple of questions. Thank you so much for being such a great company today. Olga is asking, curious to know, how does Mario finds working with staff from other nations? And I know that you've got quite a big mix of different nations, different nationalities. How is it for you?
It's my favorite thing, and when I ask from people, they usually mention that as their favorite thing as well. So we are currently 24 people and 13 nationalities. So that's quite a bit of mixture and a diversity in one team. But it's such richness, how people perceive problems and how they perceive new ideas. Because they have a different background, different experience in life. They see things from such different perspective. And the amount that I can learn from these people, and I've learned, it's been excellent. Sometimes we have cultural clashes. I mean, obviously people have such different habits. We have, we have had people who are, such open and passionately talking, and then we have nationalities who are much more quiet, and they only say things after they have considered it for a while. So sometimes we do need to translate each other. But overall, it's a richness, and it is my favorite thing as well.
So it's a bit challenging, but on the other hand, you can have a traveling appeal, because people can tell you what's their country like. You can visit whichever country you wish, and you can have a travel advisor next to you and telling you what you should see. So Fran Moisa, who's been with us a couple of weeks back, she actually delivered the first PhD. She was talking with me on the topic of recruitment and how to not feel that the job loss is the end of the world. And she's also one of the great leaders in the recruitment industry. And she's asking us today, what tips do you have for keeping team engagement up from a collaboration when working remotely? That's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one. And it's consistent work. It's not something that you do one trick and that's it. You need to be in touch with people constantly. I encourage informal chats. I think it's so important to communicate with people outside of meetings. People, might easily get into the habit that you just attend a meeting after a meeting after a meeting. But having these informal chats with people and just asking how they are and what's going on in their day, people appreciate that a lot. And when people ping me, it's always my high priority. So if anyhow possible, I do try to drop what I'm doing at that moment and really focus on the conversation. I think people know this when I do that. But I also encourage certain things like actually wrote an article about remote leadership, and one of the things that I mentioned over there was to create also a personal development plan in this time. Things like that and offering trainings and such has a big effect on the engagement. And then, when communicating, I think it's important to learn to use like emoticons and GIFs and things like that. It might sound a bit odd in the beginning, but communicating emotions is also, I feel like it has an effect on the communication quite a bit. But the engagement, it's a consistent effort.
Oh, absolutely. I think we are going back to the Egypt time when people would use signs and communicate this way better. And I'm not going to use any emoticons at the moment, but you can ask questions. Please keep these questions coming, because we are speaking today, just a reminder, with Mario Kaiko, the passionate leader of the future. And so the question now, I think many women can relate to you and think, if they wanted to enter this field as a leader of the future, what would be the steps they should acquire? So you mentioned some worksheet. What else should they consider doing? Maybe some books, maybe some, I don't know, articles?
Yes, I think that I've benefited a lot by being quite curious. I do read a lot. Just having an overall understanding on how companies run, what do they do, basic understanding how the numbers are built, what is a balance sheet, and what are the basic numbers, and what is the company strategy and how those are built generally. I do recommend reading articles on such publications than Harvard Business Review, which is my favorite one. I read that a lot. It has a big impact, because you as a leader, even though you are only leading a tech team, you do need to have an understanding of your surroundings and on the company, and to show that knowledge and to show that you understand, the things, the other departments as well.
Absolutely. One thing that I actually, you kind of suggested that by talking about, you have to understand how the company is working. So you basically say you have to stay curious all the time. You have to be curious about how different processes run. But also, I think it's a task for a leader to do that to your team, and also define other leaders, because we are entering a different era. It used to be like a management style of, I keep all the power to myself and that's how I feel important. Whereas now it's more, I feel important because I divide my tasks and I make sure that everybody is part of the team. So how do you think that is, how do you define, for example, leaders within your team, and how do you divide these tasks among your team?
I do delegate a lot, and I want to empower the people in my team. I want to recruit the type of people who are smarter than me and know things better than me to empower them. So I do believe not holding on to everything and trying to control everything, because it's a common effort. The better that your team members do, the better you're doing. So having the skill to delegate is extremely important.
Oh, absolutely. We see today we are joined by Mariela. Hello, Mariela. It's lovely to see you. And Mariela, she's the president of BPW, Business Professional Women. It's a delightful pleasure to have you here. And Mariela is asking, what advice do you give women who are re-entering the workforce in the post-COVID environment?
That's a really
tricky
good question and a tricky one. I think I can give one advice, and it's to have confidence. Women tend to lack confidence and tend to underestimate themselves so much, and they tend to not look at themselves as the same line as others. That's a big problem. If women just understood that they have the same skills as the people above them, and they have the same knowledge, or even more than that. So to have a lot of confidence in your skills and your competence, and to show that people rely on people who they think that are confident. If you show confidence, then people, they must know what they're doing. But no one knows what's going to happen after the COVID situation is over. So I'm curious to see that.
Well, Mariela, thank you very much for this question, because we discussed a little bit about it on our first PhD with Frank, who was talking about believing yourself. And also we talked a little bit about the fact that it's going to be much easier, and that was the topic of our third discussion with Coach Amina. Dr. Amina talked about how much easier it's going to be for you if you acknowledge what you achieved. Because sometimes it's, for many women, it's so difficult to know, well, I am just a housewife, but really, seriously, you've been managing your household, you've been making sure that your kids are delivered at school on timely manner, and you've been making sure that your husband has got lunch, whatever. So you are there, you have arrived. So there are so many things you can bring to the table to the prospective employer. You just don't realize, you don't make that list. And unless we make that list of things we achieved, things we've done, whether you're a housewife or whether, whatever background you were coming from, you've got things to bring to the table. You just need to show the passion and believe in yourself. So, because nobody wants to, not many people will want to employ when the situation is going to change from less than 3% unemployment to, I don't even know what the statistics is at the moment, but it's going to be somewhat different environment and different scenario for many employees and many employers. And so I think that leads us to the question of what are the 5 kind of leadership traits that everybody should have, that you believe that you want to see in your team, Mario?
So I have been doing some talks in the Women in Tech forums, and one of the talks that I deliver is the main competencies every leader in today's world should have. And I mentioned 5 main things, and these 5 main things are based on statistical data. So both leaders and employees being investigated and what they think that are the most important things for them, and also based on my own experience. So the first one would be to provide safety, the sense of safetyness. That's it's a neuroscience fact that when we don't feel safe or we feel threat to our safety, we kind of go into this flight or fight mode. and it will automatically shut down certain functionalities from our brain. We are not able to innovate or come up with new ideas and so on. And the sense of safetyness can be threatened in a lot of ways. So it's not just the physical one, it's also something that, you hear a rumor in the company about something that, you realize that, it's going to have an effect on my job. And, you immediately get into that feeling.
It's actually something we talked about with Fran, which was if you're thinking about firing or making redundancies, make sure you speak to your employees, because in a couple of months' time, the situation might change and these people will not want to be with you if you didn't make sure that they are on the same page and they understand why company had to make this or other decision, right?
Yeah, and communication, if you ask any employee from any company or anyone, what's one of the main issues in the company, everyone is going to say communication. But yeah, the other skills that I would say, one of them is like nurturing growth. And when I say nurturing growth, it's not about providing trainings. It's about getting to know the employees and getting to know their strengths and what they are good at. Not even they necessarily know themselves or they understand or know what their career path should look like. So you as a manager, you need to get to know them. And it's so important to build on strengths, especially women tend to look at themselves and think of what are my weaknesses and trying to fix them. But what you mentioned earlier about, I'm just a housewife. But think about your strengths. Think about your, you might have excellent organizational skills or excellent stress management, or you're really good at making quick decisions, and build on those. Just don't try to fix everything about yourself. Everyone has weaknesses anyway, so what's the point? When the nurturing growth it's so important, and personal development plans and providing opportunities and challenges to your employees. And yes, and then there are things like communication and belonging, because communication and sense of belonging is like a human need, like food and shelter. The worst punishment that you can give to a person is in a prison, is to put them in isolation. People rather spend time with other people who have murdered their mothers than be isolated, because the human need for connection is so strong. So you need to have the skill and ability to build that sense of belonging and connection to your employees in the team. And I did talk about communication before already. I cannot highlight how important to be able to communicate is, and how much to pay attention to it, and how much it's important to communicate outside of meetings as well, and encourage that informal communications in chat. I think chat is a great tool. I think it's so underestimated, undervalued. And then I would say there's the ability to learn, like constant learning. First of all, you as a manager and leader need to lead by example, that you are able to change opinions and admit that you're wrong. If your team members, challenge you, my team members challenge me a lot. If I say something, they definitely challenge what I'm saying. And I think that they appreciate me more when I'm able to say that, you're right, I was wrong. Yeah, that's a really valid point. Than if I wouldn't be able to do that. So that's extremely important. And when you do that and you create the type of environment where it's fine to be wrong, it's not a big deal. Then people, they learn from each other and they are more able to change opinions and so on. So this kind of constant learning is also extremely important.
Yeah, so we've got 4 or 5. So there was safety, nurturing, sense of belonging, and curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what I'm missing something.
Doesn't matter. But that's actually quite funny because Yeah, I was trying to motivate my daughter, and my daughter at one stage was like, why do I want to learn math? I don't want to go into maths, and I hate, and I hate physics. Why do I need to do that? So my explanation to her was, look, girl, you're gonna enter this room and there's going to be the most fantastic looking guy, and you're gonna look cool if you're going to impress him with some knowledge. It doesn't have to be deep, but at least when he says I'm astrophysicist, you're not gonna say I'm a Capricorn as an answer, right?
Yeah. By the
So,
way, the last one was diversity.
oh, the last one,
One of the most
diversity.
important things that we spoke about already, diversity. Like, it's not just
Yeah,
the diversity of your team, but the diversity. I think you as a leader are as successful as you have the diverse connections and the network that you have around you. So you need to connect with people outside of your normal social circles, or outside of your age group, or outside of your gender, and get to know people and learn from them, and obviously different nationalities as well. It is such business, but yeah, diversity is so important. It's a necessity.
It's diversity drives innovation. Let's face it, when you've got people coming from different backgrounds, with different history, with different experience, and coming and in collaborative process, bringing some new ideas, it's going to be much better than if you worked on it on your own. So sense of belonging, that's a tricky one when you've got remote teams. How do you keep that sense of belonging? What are maybe some exercise or maybe some tips? How do you manage to keep them belonging to your group?
Well, I was lucky in the sense that the team that I have, they are, even before the situation, spending a lot of free time together and so on. So they do a lot of things that doesn't include me. But the things that we do with the work, we started, for example, a daily coffee break. Yeah, we do that at 1 o'clock. It's just an informal chat. I usually, inform and communicate something that's going on and something that's been happening. It doesn't necessarily have to be super official things. But just keep people updated. Just have a chat. Anyone can talk about anything. Maybe someone wants to present something that they have done, or a piece of work, or ask questions. There are people who've been asking help on some tools that they are using. Like, does anyone have experience that someone can help me with this and this? And these kind of things engage people.
Can you give us an example?
An example of,
here's a great example. For example, I know one of the managers of one technology company. They do yoga Wednesdays, and they join together and they try to do on Zoom some yoga. And maybe you've got some example of similar things. And actually, I do my Saturdays morning coffee with my bestie from Torun, and I've done it before, maybe not so often, because now I'm quite more attached to having that coffee in the morning, because I don't have opportunity otherwise. But maybe you've got some hints and tips how to actually make sure that your well-being is of your team is your top priority.
Well, we do the daily coffee break, and then we have this end of the day call. It's not compulsory to attend. I mean, usually there's just maybe half of the people, or even less, and different people every day. But the idea of that meeting is that you kind of let it all out. People can rant or just let anything out that they've been doing on the day that's been bothering them and annoying them. And when that meeting is over, the work day is done and you don't get back to it. So you kind of clean the slate, and then you stop. Because when you work from home, it might be very difficult to define when the workday ends and your free time starts. For me as well, so I just tend to go into my computer and check something, and Yeah, that's the idea. So we don't do yoga or anything. I think that's a great idea. We should start doing that. But the end of the day thing, it's more of a mental
somebody,
health.
we just had a reaction emoticon with a cry face. Maybe it's somebody from your team wishing to have some yoga. Who knows?
Maybe,
They can explain why this tear face on our discussion. So, and I would like to actually talk to you about how do you manage conflict within your team? Because I think one of the great traits of leader is to notice that conflict and actually have a proper reaction to a conflict, because nobody is the same and people are dealing differently, and sometimes a wrong face may create a conflict. How do you deal with that?
I definitely needing to be a mediator quite a few times. Even the most smartest people do get into conflicts with each other. So I get involved as a mediator. I don't take sides and just try to always, if someone is hurt, then try to remind them that, I'm sure that it isn't, anything personal, and just try to kind of translate these two people to each other, because obviously there's been some kind of a misconception. People don't usually try to hurt each other on purpose. So these things gotta happen by accident, by misunderstanding. So this mediator role is not always easy either. And there might be some conflicts that you're not able to negotiate, but so far, we've been managing to do that. And once the conflict is over and it's done, then it's done. We don't get back to it anymore.
That's a good advice. That's sometimes not easy, but hiding anything under the carpet is not a good idea. And actually, I wanted to ask you about, because throughout this process and achieving and climbing up the ladder, I'm sure there were people who helped you along the way. Could you share a story? Who impacted your career the most? Why and how?
I think that the CEO of the company where I was the CTO, I really appreciate the fact that he, first of all, gave me the role, and then empowered me and really trusted me to deliver. I really appreciated that. It felt really amazing, and I appreciated it a lot. So I really tried to, do my best, and I invested everything into that. To this day, I really highly respect and look up to this person. And I know that others did as well. He was extremely liked and respected. So I would think that he's one of the main people who has affected my career. And there's been many people though.
I think this is another that interlines with what you said before, which is you need to make sure that people see the potential in you and prove it every day, which is kind of tricky. You had a very good situation because your husband is very supportive. He's now looking after your son. So how was the concept of actually your husband looking after the son, not being the breeder of the breadwinner of the family? How was it, this situation? Because I actually have to say, a friend of mine who's got similar scenario at her home was met with a lot of skepticism, and also her husband is not really perceived as manly enough. How is it for you, Mario?
Well, it's definitely a bigger problem for others than for us. Yes, we do face some judgment as well. I remember when I told people that, I'm coming back to work. I'm taking 5.5 months off, and then I'm back to work. I did get a lot of skepticism, and people were like, yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. It's not going to happen. You're just saying it. And that felt a little odd to me. It's like, I'm able to make my own plans. But people do sometimes give us some judgment. It's like, I don't know, I review my husband as extremely manly and masculine uh, being, and I appreciate the fact that him being a stay-at-home father doesn't have an effect on his self-confidence. Quite the opposite. He's really proud of it, and that makes him so manly to me. And I just try to show people by example, I guess, that this also works. My husband is Finnish, though, and in Finland it's quite common that the men stay at home for a while as well. So I don't think it was that a big deal for him to begin with.
Well, it's certainly the way Finns are dealing with roles at home is somewhat different to Malta. Can you delve into it a little bit? Did you have some difficulties explaining what it's like?
I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, my husband is home, so obviously he's doing a lot more housework than I am. Doing the laundry and taking care of stuff. People do sometimes wonder, and when you speak to people, you see from their faces that they kind of want to say something, but they don't. But I don't bother to explain something that doesn't have anything to do with them, I guess.
Well, that takes a lot of confidence. You don't really care about what other people think of you because it's none of your business. It's really what you are trying to achieve, and it's as you said, it's about emotions, not being able to talk about emotions, not being emotionally as unstable because there is. No way in business to be emotionally unstable. There are some ways you can deal with the problems. And that actually brings us to how do you believe your son's future is going to be? Because he's got a strong female leader at home, he's got a father who's looking after him. What do you think his future will be? Whether technology, whether it's how he's going to be perceiving the world, what's it like for him? How can you delve in the future?
That's a tricky question. I'm not sure what his future will bring. I'm really curious to see that. Now that I'm watching him grow up, I already see kind of like what kind of personality he's going to be and what kind of temper he has. I just really want to encourage him to following his dreams and just following the things that he is passionate about, and also to work hard on those things, to really try to achieve something within them. But I'm a little bit scared considering the technology and what kind of effect that will be, and how am I able to teach him on how to read internet, because internet is so full of all kind of things. So how is he able to understand what's right and what's wrong, and what is correct and what's not, and how to keep him safe from the type of content that I don't want a child to see, and so on. So these are the kind of things that I think about, and I'm scared and I don't know the answer to. So I guess I'm gonna find out.
So would you say that's one of, because this was the topic in our previous PhD, would you say the fear of your child's future is the biggest fear at the moment, or is there any other fear that you're kind of struggling with at the moment?
I'm not afraid of his future. I don't think I'm afraid. I'm kind of curious to see what the future will bring for him. I don't think I have any kind of very big fears at the moment. I do consider myself extremely lucky that in this situation I'm able to continue in my job. I'm employed, my family is healthy and doing well. I try not to be afraid of things that I don't know that will happen, for example. I just hope that, obviously things will stay as they are.
I think it's also what helps is the ability to adjust to change, because one of the topics, Malta, we are based in Malta. You're, I guess, talking from Sliema, the biggest expat ghetto, right?
Yes, yes.
Indeed. So in Malta, just last year, we launched the artificial intelligence framework, and we talked about how many people are afraid of losing jobs, whereas the concept of losing job because there is artificial intelligence who is going to be more intelligent than humans is rather funny, given the fact that at the moment nobody thought about COVID-19, and we've got this great platforms. And actually yesterday I attended one of the Wall Street Journal meetup and online, and they struggled with the Zoom meetup, and Vimeo was collapsing every so often. So technology is not up to scratch, really, and what we really need to focus on is the only certain in life and in business is change, and you have to adapt to it faster than it is going to scare you. So on that note, we are hitting last minutes of questions, and we've got an interesting question. I know that you didn't really want to comment on that, but let's delve deeper into the topic of. Let me just see that. Sorry. What are there differences in management approach, female and or male? Did you notice any within your team or in a company?
I don't know. I feel a little, sometimes weird to say that, females are like this and men are like this. But I do think that women have generally better emotional intelligence. And when you have that, it's such an important tool. So when you approach people, it's going to make an enormous difference in how people perceive you, how you're able to motivate them, how you're able to engage them, how you're able to deliver information that they might not like, or they need to work on a project that they might not be that interested in, and so on. The emotional intelligence is going to make the world of difference. Women generally tend to have more emotional intelligence, and they should be proud of that and build on that.
Well, I'm definitely proud of that. I'm telling you, sister. So that's actually brought me to this interesting topic. Again, we are back to the square one of women are maybe sometimes less aggressive than they are perceived as being weak, or too aggressive and they are perceived as being a bitch. And which actually brings me this very, very interesting speech that Surgeon Truth gave a couple of years back. It was in 19th century. She delivered a speech called "Ain't I a Woman?" Speech at Women's Rights Convention in Ohio. And to give you a bit of background, the speech happened because some ministers, some male ministers, joined the convention and said, women can't be leaders, they can't have the same rights because of Jesus, and because Eve was sin. And actually she spoke about the fact that should women even though Eva was the sinner, if the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down, all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. Which I think is a great topic for discussion, because we've seen so many female leaders. We've seen many female leaders during COVID. We've seen many prime ministers leading their ministries abroad, and they led by example, and they are great models. Who is your great role model?
Well, you mentioned the Prime Minister. Finnish Prime Minister is a woman my age. I think that's such an encouragement, and it shows that the world has definitely changed, and she's done an amazing job handling this kind of crisis, and I was confident she didn't expect this when she had the position that this is one of the first things she needs to do. So I really look up to her, and I find that extremely, like I said, encouraging. Yeah, I think the last things that I just want to say is that women have all the qualifications and the competencies. The only thing that they miss is the confidence in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to admit that I am holding tight because we are at 7 o'clock, but there is a question I always want to ask my guests, and I guess it's time for this question. If COVID-19 finished tomorrow, lockdown is finished, who would you bring to this private breakfast, and where would you like to have that private breakfast? Whoever in the world.
Oh wow, that's really... Well, I mentioned the Finnish Prime Minister. I would definitely want to meet her and talk to her and ask her how did she approach the crisis? How did she approach her decision making? How did she manage to remain calm and remain objective to the situation and so on? I think that would be really, really exciting conversation, and to talk about leadership in general. A woman, 34 years old woman, a prime minister. I think that's quite an achievement. In Finland.
In Finland, is there any particular place you would like to take her to?
I don't know. Oh my God, there are a million different places that I would like to visit in this world. So many exciting places. I'm not sure. I don't know. I never been to Asia, for example. So anywhere in Asia.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much, Mario. And I hope if you have that meeting, you won't be headhunted to join the political career, because you're definitely much more important in technology field. And I hope you stay long and prosper. And I wish you to succeed. And I wish our audience to succeed. And again, take an example and think about role models and how you are going to shape your future, and take that little step every day. Micro actions lead to big impact for the future. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure to have you, Mario, and I'm looking forward to next week. Join us at 6 o'clock. Woman on It, Hug the Future. Positivity Hug delivered by Beata Young and Mario Kaiko. Thank you.
Thank you.